Welcome, Veterans Perspective. This is Jeff, your host, author of the newsletter blog, and host of your podcast here on wherever you're listening to YouTube, Spotify, wherever. And today is the long waited, I've had a lot of people ask for this, part two of our education and AI series. Okay. And I know some of you have read the blog, the newsletter, and have been asking for the podcast. Well, here it is, part two: the arrogance of the Ivory Tower, why failed leaders fear new tools. Okay. The same system that gave us declining literacy rates and new math, quote unquote, now thinks it knows better than the AI revolution. Check the scoreboard. Okay. That comes directly from the blog, which I will use as part of this podcast. So let's look at the stats before we listen to the lecture, which I know some of you like. So, according to the nation's report card, the NAEP, only 33% of fourth graders in the United States are proficient in reading, according to state and national testing. Now, I'm not a fan of state and national testing. I think that students students test differently. We can demonstrate learning in different ways, but we have to measure things in some way, in some consistent way. So those are the stats that we have. I think that state testing and national testing should be done away with because I think it's unfair to students. But I have always felt that way my entire educational career. I also think it's unfair to teachers to judge teachers that way. But we'll talk about that another day. Although I will bring it up a couple more times, I'm sure. So, but that's what we have right now. So those are the statistics that I will use. Math scores have plummeted to levels we haven't seen in decades, since before the Cold War. We are pumping out high school graduates who can barely read a rental contract, let alone analyze a complex historical text. I am not blaming students. I'm blaming parents and I'm blaming the educational system. Okay. So, this is a track record of the current academic leadership in America. Okay. This is an issue for academic leadership. I'm not even blaming teachers. Okay. Maybe a little bit, but I'm not blaming teachers as a whole. I'm blaming the leadership in schools and districts and in government. Okay. School boards in particular. Okay. Yet, when artificial intelligence arrived on the scene, a tool with the potential to act as a 24/7 personalized tutor for every child, what did leadership do? Did they embrace it? Did they rush to figure out how to use it to fix the literacy crisis? Nope. Nope. They circled the wagons, they banned it, they cried plagiarism, right? They lectured us on academic integrity. Straight up audacity. The audacity is staggering here, right? They whine, moan, and complain that they think that instruction should be individualized. Then a tool exists where they could teach educators to use this tool to individualize instruction, and then they shun it because they fear it. Right? And this isn't new in education. Anytime something new comes out, education is the one to push it away. Okay. It's what happens in education, right? This isn't a new, I didn't invent this revelation. Okay. If you want to think I did, hey, that's cool. But I did not invent this revelation. Education is fearful of anything new that might challenge its authority. Okay. It's what happens in that space. Okay. If you stand out in education within the walls of the institution, if you are innovative, good luck. Good luck. They pretend like you're special, right? But you're not. You're not. In fact, you'll get the side eye from some leader somewhere who's old school, and they'll bring you down a peg or two and make sure that you're not special. It's what they do. right? And there might be that outlier somewhere here, somewhere there that props you up, right? But that's not how the system works. The system is designed to stay old, right? And not in age, right? It's designed to stay old, as in 1833, right? Line up in straight lines, right? They think that putting kids in groups and putting desks in threes, triads, is innovative. Think about that. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. They think that putting kids in triads for group work is innovative still. You have a system that has systematically failed to educate an entire generation, now claiming that they have the moral high ground to deny students access to the most powerful intellectual force multiplier since the internet. Okay? It's like a mechanic who totaled your car telling you that you aren't allowed to buy a Tesla because he doesn't trust the electronics. Okay? I want you to think back to COVID. Okay? Now, during COVID, I taught at an online high school. I won't say any name. I taught at an online high school, okay, which I loved. The only change that happened for me was that we stopped going into the office that we had and we worked more from home and we got more students because the parents stopped trusting the district's implementation of online school. So they came to us, who had been doing it for about a decade or so, because we had been doing it and we had a system that worked. Because the districts didn't trust online education. Imagine being in 2021 or 2020, whatever the hell it was, and not trusting online education, but then telling your kids to do research online. Think about that, right? And those same districts, so many of them, do not have a plan if COVID happens again or if something like COVID happens again. They don't have a plan, right? But they continue to blame COVID for their low test scores. I've heard it happen. I've been in rooms where, well, those test scores are because of COVID. It's 2026 now, and they're still blaming COVID for low test scores. And some of you educators out there are probably screaming, yeah, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Step back for a moment, use your teacher brain or your educator brain, and stop lying to yourself, because I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. So, the expert fallacy. I saw this in the military. I saw it in the classroom. There's a certain type of leader who's terrified of anything they cannot control. In the military and probably in education too, we call them toxic leaders. In fact, these are the leaders that drove me out of education. They brought me down so far that it triggered some major issues that I had with my own personal PTSD, that it drove me out of education. Right? In fact, it drove me to the point where I had to retire. Okay? They cling to how we've always done it because their authority is tied to the old system. If the system changes, their expertise becomes obsolete. In education, these are the administrators and curriculum directors who have spent careers pushing failed initiative like whole language, which destroyed reading instruction, literally killed reading instruction, or confusing new math strategies. They built their careers on being the experts in these fields or fields like this. AI threatens that. Okay? If a kid can ask ChatGPT or Gemini or choose your AI platform to explain the to explain the Pythagorean theorem in the voice of a Minecraft character and actually understand it for the first time, where does that leave the curriculum director? It leaves them irrelevant. They aren't resisting AI because they care about your kid's brain. They're resisting AI because they care about their own relevance. They don't care about your kids learning. They care about their relevance. They care about the fact that they have a job and AI threatens that job. The whole idea of education is to educate kids. And if we have tools that can do that more effectively than some sub director of some sub curriculum bullshit that wastes money, then why aren't we using the AI instead? Think about that. It's cheating versus its efficiency. The loudest argument you hear is that using AI is cheating. So let's define cheating. Cheating is passing off someone else's work as your own to avoid learning. Leveraging is using a tool to bypass the grunt work so you can focus on the high level work. When I was a teacher, I saw students struggle to write an essay, not because they didn't have good ideas, but because they couldn't organize their thoughts. They would stare at a blank page for an hour or more. And if I let them use AI to generate an outline, suddenly they were writing, they were filling in the blanks, they were arguing, they were thinking. The purists would say that is cheating. It is not. They want students to suffer through the blank page. Why? Does suffering build character? No, it doesn't. Some would say maybe. Does it build blind competence? No. If the page stays blank, they're still not learning. In the real world, the world that veterans operate in, results matter. If you can get to the solution 50% faster using a tool and you don't use it, you're fired. Right? And again, every district's mission statement has something to the effect of preparing students for the modern world. You know, that modern world that uses AI, yet you're denying that opportunity. So you're failing your own mission statement. We're training kids for a world that rewards speed and synthesis, while the school system is grading them on rote memorization and manual labor. Again, schools operate in the past. Rote memorization and manual labor instead of synthesis. You want your kids, the past wants kids to only be able to do those things. Okay? You don't want your kids to advance because it makes you relevant. School leadership. And I say that, and I don't mean all of school leadership. You know who you are. You just have to be willing to admit it to yourself. The equity lie. Here's the darkest part of the resistance. By banning AI in schools, these leaders are widening the gap they claim to close. The rich kids go home to parents who work in tech or finance. Okay, they have ChatGPT Plus, they have tutors, they're learning how to use these tools to get ahead. Poor kids, the kids relying on the school Chromebook that's been around for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, they're blocked. They are getting zero exposure to the technology that will define their economic future. You're widening the equity gap that you claim to be closing. You're making it harder for these kids. You're making it harder for the lower socioeconomic kids by denying them access to tools? Why are we not using technology funds to give access to technology that's actually going to be used in the workforce? Why are we not teaching kids how to create AI bots to help them read their notes or to help them study for a test or to help them write a paper? Because that's the type of shit that they're going to do in the real world or similar to that stuff. Or, hey, I have 45 pages to read in my history class. Let me create an AI bot to give me the bullet points and the main ideas. Now I take those main ideas, give me those main ideas. Now I'm going to write a paper about those main ideas. I'm going to write the paper. Like AI, give me an outline of the essay that I should be writing, and now I take that outline and write my paper. You're building. You're building. You're not breaking down. You're not getting dumber. You're building. Veterans Ultimatum. This will be the last point we make today. If your school district is blocking AI, we need to stop asking for permission to modernize. Parents, students, community, stakeholders, okay? We need to demand it. As parents and especially as veterans, we know what adapting looks like. We know that if you go into modern war with 1980s tactics, you will die. Okay? Period. Our kids are entering an economic war, especially the lower socioeconomic kids who are already at a disadvantage. They are competing against a global workforce that is weaponizing AI. They need to be going to schools that allow them to learn that AI in every classroom. If your school district is blocking that AI, they're guilty of dereliction of duty. Period. They are failing to prepare your child for the battlefield of the future. Call them out. Show up to school board meetings. Email. Ask them why they think their failed methods are superior to the tools of the future. They will not have an answer. Or at least not one that's correct or that makes sense. The scoreboard does not lie. They lost. It's time to let the new tools win. We do not have time to let them try to come back on the scoreboard to improve these low reading scores when they do not have the tools to improve these scores for reading and for math. They do not have the curriculum that will improve these scores at all in any way. When AI can adapt on the spot to individualized instruction, help all students. Leave your thoughts and ideas down below on the comments. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. I'll probably do 1 part per week, maybe. The blogs are already out for parts 3 and 4. They're on the Substack. I'll leave the link below to this particular part in the description. Please make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow, comment, all that stuff. We're continuing to try to grow, as you guys know. If you're on the YouTube, I post all kinds of stuff on my YouTube. My YouTube is all over the place. I do all kinds of fun stuff on the YouTube. So, but I do put these in their own, or I'm starting to put these in their own playlist. So they are a little bit separate, so you guys could see them a little bit better in their own veteran perspectives your playlist. Okay, but thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks for listening. You guys have a good one.